Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Many of you are probably very aware of the post that I made on YouTube. I didn't make a video, I just put it in the community section on YouTube. But after months of in and out of the vet and keeping an eye on his condition, I took Aloha in for a vet visit because it seemed like he went blind. And they said that he had an undetected mass that was causing a neurological condition in his brain. And effectively, even if they did something, he'd probably stay blind, which he was barely eating, barely drinking, couldn't groom himself anymore. I had come to the acceptance even months ago that he was probably on this road, just because it seemed like every time I turned a corner that was good or bad, something else would just come up along the way. So the other day, made the difficult decision to put Aloha down after they had told me about the mass, just because, like I said, at 12 years old with the surgery, not even guaranteed to help. It was like, I don't want to keep him alive just to he's going to suffer. Like, if he can't get his sight back, he can't be himself anymore. At that point, it was just, as an owner, I had to make that decision. Ivy, consequently, as you can see, has wanted double the attention. I don't think she's really so much noticed that Aloha's not here. Sometimes it seems like she does. Because, in the mornings, she used to, go and, spend time with him. And now she's meowing louder than I've ever heard her. I've never heard her meow so loud as she has in the past few days. That's like she's looking for him. I know that cats don't really meow at each other. But, that's how it feels, as an owner. But, yeah, Aloha's moved on to the Rainbow Bridge. I'm not going to be doing anything, content-wise for that. I don't want to. I am going to be getting his ashes in a little container, and they're going to go back there. But that's pretty much going to be the end of it. It hasn't been easy to talk about when people come to stream and give me their condolences. That's just me, though. I still appreciate people who have been doing that as such. But you've just probably... I mean, I'll probably get used to talking about him in conversation a little bit more as time goes on. But, yeah, that's where I'm at with that. All the same, I have a weekly Q&A to do. I saw there's a lot of comments, not a lot of questions, but all the same, I'll probably grab the questions first and then talk a little bit about the comment stuff, because it looks to be a lot about my PvP take. Not my PvP take, my frontline take. So, yeah, we'll get to all that. Also, shout out to, sorry, as you can tell, the intro isn't going to go smooth from this point on because, it's not the easiest thing. But shout out to the sponsors over on Patreon. I did see somebody had bumped their support up. Oscar, thank you for that. Again, Patreon support is completely optional. There's no benefit to using it or any of the other. I guess technically there is membership benefit to YouTube. There's a few emotes if you come by the live stream, because I do stream on both Twitch and YouTube every day from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. now. So whichever platform you prefer, or if you didn't know that, I do that now. It comes with some emotes over there, but that's about it. But all the same, anyone who does support, thank you. And obviously, if you do, you'll get the shout out here because you have no obligation. I post all my content for free. I want you all to be able to enjoy it for free. And that's not going to change. I don't really want to lock anything behind memberships or Patreon or anything like that when I could just post it for everyone to enjoy. Anyway, let's get into the Q&A then, shall we? Yeah, I had to scroll through quite a few outright comments before I could get down to the first question. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Happy. Hi. Hope you're doing great. Well, I mean, this was 6 days ago. This was before everything. So, obviously, not your fault. I got two topics that I want to gauge your opinion on. All right, opinions are kind of rough, but I guess we'll see. Savage gear acquisition process. Personally, I'm sick of putting in time into learning and clearing fights only to get pity books every week. Why do they not add one drop per week like normal mode? Instead, it'll increase interest because why should people try and take part in content when they won't necessarily get anything for at least 3 weeks? I mean, that's the carrot and stick situation. Basically, for doing the fight, we'd have to completely restructure how gear works in this game to give everyone loot. The reason why that works in some other MMOs is because you can get loot that is undesirable. So for example, let's say they did this. They'd have to be willing to give you a specific piece that may not even be for your class. Because otherwise, essentially, they need to always have a carrot on the stick. And however long it takes you to get there, whether it's 1 week of really good loot or 8 to 10 weeks of not getting anything at all, it's irrelevant to them because there needs to be a carrot on the stick. That's like that's like a game as a service problem, more so than it's a Final Fantasy 14 problem. And all things considered, we have things largely okay. I am still a bigger fan of creating more activities that you can earn loot from, or that have some sort of end, like some loot objective involved in it. Even if you still don't have odds, if you can create more content where even if you're just getting a book a week or a token a week, you're still working towards like more ways to work towards pieces that you need. I think that's better overall for the game than trying to make it so everyone can be done as fast as possible. Because unless you're doing Ultimate, the gear from Savage is largely irrelevant anyway. It's really just the, I want to hit harder, and I don't really buy, maybe like you don't buy crafted gear for each raid tier, so like you really want to get as close to best in slot as possible. But there's, yeah, this is a constant conundrum of the players wanting something that will reduce the amount of time they may need to invest to complete an objective versus it being an MMO that's charging you monthly to play the game, and thus they have no real incentive. I'm not saying that like they deliberately do it because they want more of your money, but they also fundamentally understand that they do need to kind of do, like, it's not like they're like, man, we really want to screw them over, but they're like, well, we have to make sure that, again, carrot and stick. So it just kind of goes back and forth, and there's really no solid solution. I still think more content that rewards loot that's desirable is better than making it so one activity can be done as fast as possible. And then you have the PvP rewards from previous seasons and rewards moving forward. What would you like to hear from the devs regarding this? Just make it trophy crystals. I'm shocked they haven't said anything. We know that the next live letter has a bit more with PvP. We know 7.2 has the frontline rework. Or I say rework, I shouldn't say that. That's going to put people into a panic. Major frontline update. Could just be a new map. Could be some of the retooling stuff I talked about last time. We don't know. Speculation is all that is. But we know that there's something big planned for frontline at 7.2. But yeah, I would just trophy crystals. Man, just get the rewards back in there. Please, from the old series. Not the old seasons, but the old series. This one's in at Mondays with Mr. Happy. I got you, don't worry. Greetings and salutations. Hello. There's one thing I've learned over the years, that Yoshi P has a twisted sense of humor, with the reveal of Fafnir as being one of the raid bosses and echoes of Vanadil, and him mentioning that we can expect several wipes before we clear. Would you believe are the chances Spike Flail will return in all its glory? Here's the thing. I think it would be smart to make Spike Flail an AoE, but I think realistically it's just going to be a tail conal. Because Spike Flail is, and I mean, they could just make it the raid wide. They could make it so like a bunch of darters appear and you have to kill all the darters before Spike Flail goes off or something in that capacity. Here's what they won't do. I don't think they'll make it so standing behind Fafnir kills everyone. I don't think they'll do that. So we'll see. But you know what would actually be really cool though? So one of the other mechanics Fafnir has, and I'm going to bring this up in the standalone video I'm going to work on for this. His breath attack does more damage the closer to the front of his head you are. I would actually like to see them start sorry, whatever I ate, just like I spit it into the back of my teeth and it was distracting me. I'd like to see them make it so that we have AoE markers that are very similar to the normal AoE markers, but they have like a concentrated section that does a lot of damage and like a lighter section that does less damage. So like, let's say the breath attack hits 180 degrees in front of Fafnir, but the direct 90 degree in front of him is like a darker color or a darker indicator or just a different indicator altogether. And that means that if you're there, it's way more harmful. Now, should that be affecting things? Because should people really be standing in front? No. But I mean, it would mean the tank has to at least move into the lighter section, potentially. I guess it depends on if they want to make Fafnir turn directly to face a target or not. More likely, they'll just make the breath attack like an instant AoE or something. I don't know. There's a few options there. But yeah, I mean, I think Spike Flail has to be there. I think darters have to be there. And I think there's a few other things. Like, they're going to have to do more than what he could already do. Because, well, yeah, in 11 terms, Fafnir was threatening for its time. It's not really all that threatening. Like, the wing attack needs to be just a raid wide, like a normal one. And then Spike Flail and, yeah, I mean, I think I've made my point. But they're probably going to do something with that regard. They just have to. Hashtag Mr. Haps with Mondays. That one confused me. So no hello. Unfortunate. So I've been doing achievement hunting, and this has been keeping me hooked to the game. I have, oh man, I'm letting this get away from me. I have leveled some jobs to 100, completed both both combat and craft together, and completed the fate areas besides the random S rank or picking up tome gear. I've not touched DT areas since. What is some content that you would add to keep engagement up with the game that is not one and done? I wish there was more overworld content myself, duels, random single-player instance dungeons. I mean, there's maps, but that's with a group. Teleportation and roguelike areas that are like deep dungeons, which don't take hours. So that's you're just asking for a different type of game. So duels, I totally understand. Unless you mean the large, like the Bozia duels. The Bozia duels, they've already said that's essentially like making a mini raid boss and takes about as much time. They're not going to add those into the overworld. They're going to keep that pretty much exclusive to exploration content. Random single player instance dungeons, you can solo treasure maps if you really like to. I've done it. You can do it. Teleportation and roguelike areas that are deep down. Yeah, that's never going to happen. I mean, we have content that I still regularly engage. I mean, Eureka literally is like a treasure trove of community and content that you can always get involved in. Bozia is too, just not quite to the same capacity. And I think that's really all it is. I think they need exploration content earlier in the expansion, because when done well, exploration content is very, very involved and not one and done. And we've seen that also with other things. I mean, deep dungeons are not one and done either. There's an entire community built around soloing and even doing them in groups. And we have several of them. Just the most recent one wasn't the most popular one. Yeah, it's really just, we need the exploration content sooner. Like, that's the big thing more than anything. And I think they also need to really go back and look at, a lot of it is reward structure. Like, things are one and done because reward structure is bad, not because the content needs to be different. So that's like the Criterion problem largely. But I think even the variants, the fact that you do the 12 and then you're basically done. I either want a roulette with the variants or something that's better than what it is now in terms of replayability, because doing the 12 paths does really feel like a one and done. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hi. Hope you and the pets are well. Pet singular now. Again, not your fault. This was 6 days ago. Was getting back into 11. Thanks again for introducing it to me with your initiative last year, and just finished Chains of Promethea. Was wondering which 11 expansion is your favorite and which character had the most impact. I think Chains is the unanimously best expansion. Some people would argue Wings of the Goddess for its story, but Wings of the Goddess has a major pacing issue. Even if its individual elements are all quality, has a major pacing issue, both in terms of how you progress the story and how it was released and the content and just the sporadicness of it, especially if you did it on content. I think you either have to say Chains or Rhapsodies. It's rare that you'll see an 11 person go any other direction with it. Listen, the thing is, Seekers is really good. Wings at the end of the day is good. Xylart's not that good. Xylart is like the early days, like they weren't really doing that much in the way of storytelling. It was really just a mild, it's just kind of like a minor expansion to the base game story to just like open the world up a little bit more. It's really more of a precursor to Chains of Promethea than it is almost anything else. And then Treasures it has the hype moments, but I think Treasures is not that good. I think Treasures might be the worst of all the expansions, which is funny because it's when the game was most popular, because the content was probably the best during Treasures for the olden days. You could argue Abyssia, if you want to really count that, might be the worst, maybe one of the add-on scenarios. Seekers is really good. Rhapsodies. Voracious, it really depends on how involved you are with the lore, because it's way more of a lore dump than a story, but the story that is made with the lore dumps that they give is pretty damn good. I really ended up liking Voracious. I just didn't like what I had to do in order to complete it. So I think Chains, especially because Prish is my favorite character, and I'm really glad to have her back. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Haps. Hi. Hope all is well. It's as well as it's going to... Oh, Ivy, you left. Where'd you go? Ivy, come back. Get back in the recording. I looked at your stream a few times while you're leveling jobs to 100 and saw you doing quite a few fates. I'd like to ask, was there any particular DT zone you would recommend as optimal for your longer-term gemstone farming? Fates closer together, faster respawn. So, up to 99, I really like Shaloni. Oh, Ivy came down here. She's on the second level of the tower instead of the top. Shaloni is really good. It's got 3 teleports to get around the map. There's quite a few objectives, and they're all pretty quick and easy. However, if you want to farm at 100, Shaloni's not good because you do need to sink down in the northern side of the map. I think Heritage Found and Shaloni are your best bets. Heritage Found, Requires a little, maybe a little more teleporting. Shaloni, it's really a matter of convenience to be able to teleport everywhere. Heritage Found, you really have to, because otherwise you will miss fates far more regularly. But at the very least, if you are level 100, you don't have to sink down there. So one of those two zones, if one's not popping, do the other. Now, keep in mind, what's going to happen in 7.1 is you'll likely no longer stick to one zone, or you'll more likely stick to whichever zone has instances. We're going to lose the triple instance thing soon. And if you want to be really ideal about fate farming, you finish everything in the instance, then just go to the next. I hate when people start trying to shop around, like to go from 1 to 3 to 2 to 3 to 1 because they're like looking for, I hate doing that. Just go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. No one has to worry about anything. No one has to think about anything. Is it technically worse? Only kind of, but the communication level being on the same level with everyone, because everyone has different ways of thinking about it. In my opinion, just it simplifies it. It turns the brain off. It lets you just go nothing, 2, nothing, 3. And it just eliminates the try-harding aspect of the fact that you're already kind of trying hard. So, yeah, but that's going to change. If there are no zones that have instances at all, then probably going back and forth between Shaloni and Heritage Found will be the play. You don't want to sit in a zone and wait for a fate. You do want to go looking for a fate, whether it be instances or another zone. So that's the adjustment I expect in 7.1. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Greetings and goodbye. Well, that's sad. I feel like you only said goodbye because I complained about not getting hellos. You said greetings, though. Maybe you said goodbye because now you're done with the question and you've left. I must know more. From the question of Endwalker Relic Step Matte replicas, no, they do not exist. Just a cool cyberpunk weapon. I agree, would be... Oh, there's no question here. Well, I already read it and I don't have that many questions, so I guess I'm leaving it in. Generally speaking, the hashtag is used to ask a question, not to make a statement, because otherwise we're in this awkward moment. But now I know, at the very least, and they should fix that, because they should have a matte version of that weapon. It would be cool. Please do it. Unless the... See, this is where my knowledge... Unless the previous step is the same model without an effect, and that has a matte version. Hashtag Mondays with Happy Cat Dab. Hey, Haps. Hi. I've been playing a bit of Blue Mage lately, and the cooldown on the res got me thinking. Is putting a cooldown on Summoner, Red Mage, res enough for Square Enix to give them more damage? So, here's the problem. The problem with that is how the player base ends up reacting to it. Because if you give them more damage, and you limit the res to once every 5 minutes, if they never need the res, they're closer to being as good as the jobs that have more damage, but having that backup utility, which makes them probably the more desirable jobs as long as the damage check doesn't require the top end with Picto and Black Mage. The other problem is that Double Caster pretty much becomes mainstay. Right now, it's become a lot more common of taking one res caster, one non-res caster. If you limit it to once every 5 minutes and bump the damage, you probably end up in a situation where people just run Red Mage Summoner because they're closer to that top end, and now they have those 2 extra reses available. So I actually think it might make the problem worse, at least for the other jobs, for the other caster jobs. I think that as long as there is a combat res that only specific jobs have in the game, we're going to have some given, like some given pull. Is that the term? I don't know. We're just going to have to, it's going to be tough. I still think that maybe just making something available that takes the reses away from them and makes it so that the raid has a number of reses, like as a total, is probably for the better than trying to come up with a weird solution. The thing is that there are a lot of good gameplay reasons to keep the reses in the game, which is why I almost feel like they just shouldn't care and just say, like, screw it. Like, don't add the cooldown, give them more damage. Like, just do it. Because here's the thing. If there is, high-skilled people will take the jobs that they're best at. High-skilled people will play the jobs that have no reses because they know that if they need the res, they're probably screwed anyway. They can analyze the situation. The average player needs reses in the game. They do, whether it be for 24-mans or for, like exploration. Like, the average player needs it, right? We're only talking about something so few people actually care. Like, the number of people who pretend to care about like damage balancing and whatnot and job balance, and I say pretend to care, is only because a lot of creators or high-end people who are like in that space care, right? But they don't play the game in such a way where it matters. But yet because it's a popular topic, it kind of like leeches into some people's opinions. Whereas the people who really want that balance are looking at it again for something that is not what most of the player base is doing. So I think they just need to give them more damage and leave it as is. Even if that's not what like my instinct tells me is the best thing for raid, I think it's the best of both worlds for all of the player base, because the best players will still play those high-end jobs that don't have reses, even if these ones do. They will likely fall back on them if it's okay, but I think that's fine, personally. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hi. An extra for any missed. You got one. Good, because we did have one that was missed. I'm just wondering if the devs have ever talked about their swear filter and the consequences for swearing. I said in PvP, we're getting effing destroyed. Next thing I know, I'm getting kicked. Oh, right. Can you talk in Frontline? It's been a while since I've ever since they limited it in Feast, I haven't even tried in Frontline, so I don't know. Next day, my account is flagged for harassment. Literally 2 days later, I was doing MSQ in the desert town, and 1CS bastard, teat, and shite were said. How can they be so hypocritical and have a swear filter and nail me for swearing one time? So it's not the swearing. It's very so here's the thing. I have learned one thing on the internet. You're telling me all you said is we're getting effing destroyed, which has to be Frontline or Rival Wings, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to have typed. I don't think that's the whole story. Now, keep in mind, we're getting effing destroyed is more like a demoralizing thing, right? And even then, I still think that shouldn't be. I've heard of people getting suspensions and bans for really like minuscule things. I just think that's GM. That's not even the game. That's the GMs with just like a hypersensitive, like just screw it, just get rid of them kind of thing. But I also know better than to take someone's word for it, that that's all that happened. I know better. I've had so many people come to me and they'll be like, oh, this is what happened. And then like, I'll be like, oh, that doesn't make much sense. And then they'll like describe the entire situation. Like, and they'll start saying like, they'll be like, somebody else will have said something and they'll have said something they didn't think was that big a deal either. But that will have been the thing that actually got them. So it's not the swearing. It's the general demoralizing demeanor. It's essentially telling your whole team you're not good, or at least that's the only way you could get to anything that's even remotely close to it. But yeah, I refuse to take this as is. While it's believable, I always feel like I will never judge it. But it's the difference between the GMs and player interaction and the game and the developers, who are not the same as the GMs, who are writing a script that has characters that swear. They're not the same thing. But that's a whole thing to get into. And again, for this particular case, it's just I know better than to just say, oh, well, that's what happened. That's crazy. No, I'll just be like, if that's what happened, that's crazy. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hola, hola. I was looking for your channel to see if you had a playthrough for Monster Hunter World. Start for Fatales. I didn't play Iceborne at all. So I was traveling when Iceborne came out, and all of my Monster Hunter friends told me it's amazing, it's fantastic, but the claw mechanic is so dumb. And I watched them do some hunts, and I watched the claw and how it interacted with, and I was like, yeah, that doesn't look fun. So I never played. I'm gonna play it before Wilds, but I also don't upload on this channel outright playthroughs really much anymore, unless it's like a demo or like a specific thing in 14. And I have a VOD channel, but the person who was uploading to it stopped uploading, the person who volunteered to do it, which is fine. You know, they weren't obligated to do it. And I'm not very good at doing it because I do everything on my own as it is anyway, and that's the last thing I'm thinking about. So there probably won't be an upload. I'll probably stream it, doing up to Fatalis, probably sometime in the near future. No, I'm not going to farm to solo it. I don't care. I just want to play through it so I have the full Iceborne experience. But as long as I have the time, which I'm actually not convinced I will, I have to, because I won't be able to start that till January. At the earliest is when I'd be able to start that. It comes out in February, so. Also, what weapon do you main? Because there's no hand-to-hand. There is in Frontier. Give me my Tonfas. Hammer, bro. I got a bonk. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Another not hello, and I don't think we have any spares. I saw a post from another longtime 14 creator, Mioni, voicing that despite putting out the same quality content, the engagement is lower than usual in his 14 videos. Sounds to me Dawn Trail, despite having the best battle content so far as lower retention engagement rate. Is a sign that 14 formula has reached its peak, or just that another MMOs are getting better and most pandemic refugees have bounced off pre-Shadowbringers? You know what? Actually, I have a lot to say about this. Or it could be that most people left because of the MSQ and a certain hated characters. Just 2023 all over again with lots of good games. So you're throwing it all over the place. I'll say a couple of things. One, Shadowbringers is past. The pandemic, while still having after effects, is largely past. People were home and people were engaging with things more. I made more money during the peak of the pandemic than I've made in so many other years. And I know a lot of people who went full time in content creation during the pandemic because A, they were already home and stuck home, and B, they were doing good. Again, everyone was home, so the viewership across everything was a lot better. And as we've come further and further away from it, and not just in Final Fantasy XIV, but in content creation as a whole, I've seen a lot more people struggling with exactly this thought and exactly this problem. Because when you get into things when things are really good, right, at its absolute peak in terms of viewership, something that will hopefully never happen again, you're not entirely trained to deal with what it's like in between those moments. And you do need stuff to fall back on. Now, I will say that when I release the videos I'm used to releasing, that I feel the engagement is about the same, except for a couple of specific things. And I don't think that's because of Dawn Trail at all. Hell, I don't even necessarily think that's because of post-pandemic, although it probably plays a bit of a role. A lot of it is just patch lull content releases. When the game isn't a popular topic, people aren't going to watch it. And when YouTube sees something's not a popular topic, it's not going to push it through to people as much as it does versus other popular topics. So there's a lot of different facets that go into it. And it's a matter of what are we creating as creators? Why did it work in the first place? Why would it be not doing as good now? Right? And there's a lot of different elements. Doing too much of the same thing. Like, I do a lot of the same thing. I don't evolve my content a whole lot. I maybe change editing styles or like release a new style of video. A lot of the times I try to create content that's very flash sale kind of, like it's not evergreen. And then when I do create evergreen content, great, it's there. It's always there. It's going to be good. But you have to really assess what is successful about your channel, why is it successful, and what does it rely on? There's a reason why I've been able to do this for 11 years through all of 14's highs and lows and still be perfectly fine. It's because while 14 has always been my home base, I've also done things for me and I've branched out and I've made sure to look for opportunities and things that can be beneficial to my channel, either short term or long. Experiences with games that I play that I'm able to converse with my stream with definitely adds a bit of value to that. Short form sponsorships, as well as looking into new games, which sometimes you look into something and it doesn't do as well as you want it to do. And sometimes you look into something that does way better than you thought it ever could. I remember when Wayfinder came out, that was a huge disaster. You know, thousands and thousands of viewers watching Wayfinder as we were desperately trying to log in and play. You know, I've had that with other, MMO releases that I've played for a short time, whether I've been sponsored to do them or not. I've had random RPGs. I remember streaming Final Fantasy X was the first time I ever got to 1,000 subs on Twitch, like active subs, like people paying monthly. And it's like, there's so many different things that you have to look at. There's no one answer to any of it. But I know a lot of people who are struggling with this, and I see everyone's solution to it being different. I see some people stepping away from content creation full-time more now. I see some people who do subathons and donathons a lot more because they are trying to, like, I don't know if they're trying to recapture what it was like during the peak, or if it's like an adrenaline thing, because some people need to have that dopamine hit of always feeling like they're successful. And in between, like incentivized, like subathons, donathons, stuff like that, they don't feel any gratification. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, that's what I assume it is, because it like, what else would it be, right? You can't just, like, if you're running 4 or 5 subathons, donathons a year, like, something's not right. Like there's either some self-doubt in there, there's like a need, like a need that maybe some people don't know, like a monetary need that isn't just like staying alive. It could be like, I guess, for example, pet bills. But there's a lot of facets to it. And there's no one way to know for certain which facet it is you need to look at, whether it's content creation as a whole, whether it's the way that you design content. Is the frequency of your content really worth what you're doing as much anymore? There's no way to know for certain, but there's no one answer, I guess, is the answer to it all. And everyone has to deal with that kind of in their own ways. I've been perfectly fine just divulging into other stuff, accepting that there's going to be a few low points and then, getting back into the swing of things when I feel like I have more stuff to do. I've done that for years, and that's kept me sane and healthy, I think, for the most part. Like now dumping a bunch of hours into Metaphor, looking forward to Romancing Saga 2 later this month, contemplating about the other RPGs. I mean, there's Dragon Quest 3, there's Neo Fantasian. We have the patch, we have guides to make, we have Chaotic Alliances. I have the new Ultimate, going to be racing for that. I have my birthday, I have Christmas. Like I see all of these different things, and I see events that I can hold and interactions I can have with my community. And especially right now, I feel like I really need that, and that's what I'm focused on. So hopefully everyone who is struggling with this kind of thing figures out what it is they need to do. But I can tell you this, sitting around doing nothing doesn't solve any problems. So be proactive. To anyone out there who's struggling to find themselves, now that if they got into content creation after the pandemic's done, find yourselves and figure out, where your balance is, what works for you, what can work for you, what will work for you, and just don't ignore it. That's pretty important. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello there. General Kenobi. Posting from a few weeks back because YouTube deleted my comment for some reason. That's strange. I've been playing 12 Zodiac Age for the first time and realized something. I was completely into everything in the game. Battle systems, party members, elements. I didn't even know Vaughn's name, for God's sake, which is weird. For some reason, nobody ever talks about 12. I have no idea why. It's not one of the iconic ones. Like 6 and 4 are like the big ones that get talked about from the 2D era. That's Final Fantasies 2 and 3 in the US, and games were kind of on the rise, and those were really influential games for their time. 7 being the first 3D game, obviously with Remake, Rebirth, and the eventual whatever they call it. Massively influential, really the thing that accelerated Final Fantasy as a franchise to a global market. 10, first game on the PS2, massive graphical success, first one with voice acting. 11, the first MMO released for Final. Those all have landmark things. 9 is a lot of people's favorites. 8 people talk about a decent bit, but those are the hallmark ones. 12 is kind of this like weird in-between space that exists similar to like 2, 3, 5, where 5 is another fantastic game, but you also don't hear people talk about it as much. Yes, there's a huge community around 5, but it's still not, when you talk to Final Fantasy fans, 5 very often is like one that you have to kind of fish through enough fans to get brought up like naturally. And 12 is kind of the same way as that. 13 is very divisive, so people talk about it a lot. Same with 15, same with 16, 14 is another. Like there's reasons why 12 just kind of exists. A lot of people did or didn't like it on the initial release and never gave Zodiac Age a try. I didn't like the original 12, but Zodiac Age is one that I really, really enjoy. And a lot of it is probably because it is basically a single player MMO. But it's not really ignored. There's not anything divisive, and it's not, for a lot of people, it's not one of those peak favorites that like defined a generation of Final Fantasy, So it just doesn't have the accolades to it to be frequently part of the discussion. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi. First time commenter here, so I'll be quick. Do you think they should add job specific Hall of the Novice content, like teaching people how their jobs are supposed to work? So they've talked about that. The problem is there's a very few jobs I think actually need that. And they also would not show people their actual like end game rotations. And if they don't do that, there's a risk of people thinking that they've learned exactly how to play their job and never really evolving. So I think like Black Mage needs this. And I think you could argue it for jobs maybe like, I don't know, Monk, for example. But there's a lot of jobs that just don't need this, and that the basic role ones are actually sufficient for at least getting the basics down. After that, it has to be down to your own creativity. I do think they could probably do something. Do I expect them to, or do I think they will or even should? Not really, except for Black Mage. There's so many Black Mages that don't know how Fire 3, Blizzard 3 work. Like, that needs to be better explained somewhere. And also, a lot of the newer job quests, the very first job quest you do, a lot of them do kind of force you to learn the job, at least at like a bare minimum specific way. So they've kind of already done that. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe work it better into the job quests when you unlock certain abilities. Like when you get both Fire 3 and Blizzard 3, make the job quest force you to learn that interaction instead of doing it in the Hall of the Novice, you know? Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays and more. Hi, Happy. Hi. I will ask you a few questions. I've been wondering in 14 if the hitbox of all races is the same. Yes, it is 1 pixel under your character. It is not different. The only reason why I say Lalafell privilege when I dodge something is because I feel like I can more easily see that lone pixel. But wondering too, what is the limit of answers you can respond to for one person? I mean, it depends on how many questions there are in a given week and if I'm annoyed by the questions. Like if somebody has 5 really annoying questions, I might not answer them. Global cooldown, the maxing your press is 2 off global. Well, I mean, that depends on both what the off global is. I'm sure Dragoons can vouch for that. And what the global even is, because some globals don't have the, and also depends on what your actual GCD is. If you have a 2.0 GCD, good luck double weaving. If you have a 2.5, then as long as your ping isn't too bad, then it's probably fine. But generally, you never want to delay your GCD. If you cannot cleanly do 2 off globals, it's usually recommended to just go for the single weave. Now, I will say this though. When I have to play on OCE sometimes, I just say screw it because I want my buff alignment to be as close to its usual point as possible. So my buffs, at the very least, I will rush out. After that, it kind of falls apart because then I can't double weave all the offensive skills that aren't the buffs. So doesn't really work out, and you can tell pretty quickly. But the general rule of thumb is in less extreme situations, you don't want to double weave if it will clip your GCD. So try to resolve that, and good luck from there. All right, there may not have been very many questions, but because of the questions, and I spent this actually ended up being a decent length episode because there's just a lot of comments about like, it's funny to me because a lot of the comments are about frontlines being enjoyed basically because they're not good PvP, which is hilarious to me because modes can be better and still be fun for everyone and for large scale. Like I said, I've largely recommended just to go down to 2 teams, which is still 48 people, which is still absolute nonsense. But the problem is that that's the only people that like PvP in Final Fantasy XIV are the people who don't like PvP, which means your PvP is bad, which we've all come to accept. And maybe they need to come to accept it. Maybe they have, and that's why it's remained the same. But if they're going to make any sort of effort to large-scale PvP, there are just things they should do. And it's objectively correct. Because the participation amongst people who don't care about PvP is still only okay at best. It's not even okay. It's still like way below the participation rate they would probably want it to be. If they could make it slightly better, but maintain that it's still a large impactless, I guess is what you'll call it. If you have mostly impactless modes, meaning that you as one person are essentially cannon fodder because you don't care about how good you play, everyone else doesn't really care. So you're all just kind of getting stomped most of the time, but you're taking turns stomping each other, so it's fine. But you can still make it a little more fun for the people who enjoy PvP by actually just making the modes better, making the maps better, balancing the experience a little bit more. You increase engagement overall. And I think that's what they need to do because a whole mode can't survive only on people who don't like it. Or at least it's not supposed to. I do think there are other more pressing issues. I think the Crystalline Conflict ranked problem where basically people, and that comes down to, you know what's funny? Well, no, the reason why ranked is a problem is because it has to be skill-based matchmaking. So you deliberately have to limit the pool. And if the pool is limited, then people don't want to enter the pool because without enough people entering the pool, you can't rank up. So that's a whole different problem. Unranked Crystalline Conflict does not have a problem with queues or participation at all. It's just ranked. So like that's a more obvious issue, I feel like. But yeah, Frontlines definitely need some help. It doesn't matter if some people like doing, unsol here or there, or shatter here or there, doing it for the roulette every day. You can still keep a lot of the spirit there. And I also still don't understand why Rival Wings is so hated. It's barely, it's almost no different. Like, you can still just go and murder hobo everyone, or try to go with everyone to the tower and just like not really try, like you're already doing in Frontlines, because Frontlines is a mode that inherently, if a team is trying, they essentially stomp either of the other teams. Even if the other teams are both teaming up, there's a good chance the one team that knows what they're doing is probably going to win at the end of the day. And Rival Wings is very much the same. If both teams are trying, that's a clusterfuck. And if one team is trying, they're very likely to win over the other team. I don't understand. Just don't do the robots then. Just walk up and just do what you've always done and just exist in PvP. I don't know. It seems very arbitrary to like Frontlines and dislike Rival Wings when they're both bad, and a lot of them bad for different reasons. Frontlines being because it's largely imbalanced, and Rival Wings because there's tiny robots, towers, and big dudes that people can get in to push the objective. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. It just seems like people only want PvP to be bad, so nobody who likes PvP will do it, which is weird. It's super weird. I'm letting you know. You'll never change my opinion about it, because that's very strange. It's a very strange outlook to have on an entire feature of a game. But that's like largely what most of the comments are. There's a few things about the ultimate, a few things talking about, me just looking good last week, I guess. And something about insurance. Oh yeah, and Black Myth Wukong is a winning game of the year. I don't want it to win game of the year either. All I'm saying is I've seen years where a game's success, I've seen it both ways. I've seen years where a game's success outweighs whether it's actually the best game. And I've seen years where games that are innovative, even if they're not technically the best games, but like the year Journey won, Journey is a great game. Should it realistically have won for what it was up against? Probably not, but because it was such a standout game, it won, right? That's the problem with giving honestly, nobody should care about game of the year. It's meaningless. Your vote matters for so little of the overall vote, and game journos, a lot of which were part of the voting process, don't have a great track record, especially in recent times. So it's fun to root for your game, and there are some categories where I think it like is a genuine thing, like seeing 16 win best. To me, 16 winning best music was more important than it ever getting close to winning game of the year, because it would have been criminal to lose best music. It was criminal Octopath 2 wasn't even on that nomination. You know what I mean? But I think the real thing is treat it like a sports event that you actually have no investment in, where you can cheer for the winner. You can be angry somebody didn't win, but then you literally walk away and go, oh, I actually didn't really care. I was just trying to get involved. Like I've been to a Dodgers game in Los Angeles. I don't care about the Dodgers, but when the Dodgers hit a home run, I'm like, yeah. When somebody strikes out, I'm like, oh. And then I walked away and I was like, I don't care about Dodgers. I don't care at all. The energy was good, so I liked it. I just want to be part of the energy. This is good right now. But now I'm done and I don't care. Yeah, that's kind of how you have to treat game of the year anyway. So anyway, that is, either way, that's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mrhappy. Be sure to ask your questions in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like and subscribe. And I do have a couple of videos hopefully planned for this week. I had something really busy other than the whole ordeal with Aloha that was eating a lot of my time in the last week. So I want things to go back. I want to say things will be back to normal, but I can't say that for certain at this point. Working on it though, by patch for sure. Anyway, I will see all of you next week. And until then, I bid you adieu. Bye-bye.